that I didn't choose the topic was given to me, but I read it as an invitation to talk about the convergence of ecological feminism, which has been my interest for several decades now, and the politics, the emerging alternative that's coming from the global south, particularly led by the South American peoples. I should say, in the first instance, that yes, it's true, I'm an academic and I'm also an activist, but first of all, I'm a mother, and this really has guided all the work that I do in other spheres. The ecological feminist analysis is now 2 generations old, actually. It emerged spontaneously from women across every continent, somewhere in the 1970s. And the first premise of ecological feminism is that the first and deepest contradiction that exists and runs through all our politics is the division between humanity and nature. So I have a piece of semi-appropriate technology here. Compromise. The deepest contradiction, the contradiction between humanity and nature. Now this is often known, particularly among my colleagues in the United States, as anthropocentrism, this domination of humanity over all other life forms. But in actual fact, it's not the right word. The correct word is androcentrism. Because the crisis, the dual crises that we are facing, is not only stemming from the global north, it is actually gendered, and it is a gendered masculine. This is a typical ecofeminist piece of analysis. We heard last night that the discourse of the global north and the discourse of economics is very self-referential. And this is because it's really the discourse of only a very small fraction of humanity. And it is self-referential and self-sustaining by virtue of a number of metaphors which penetrate our discourses, our ideologies, our political frameworks, our economic constructs, and so on. So this is the common sense, if you like, of an androcentric discourse. Humanity versus nature, yes. Mind over body, subject before object, masculinity on the one side, femininity on the other, production taking priority over reproduction, the sphere on the left, on the right-hand side, the sphere of humanity, masculinity, production, is already enjoying a number of rights, whereas responsibilities are being picked up by the sphere on the other side. The quite Eurocentric notion that progress belongs only to the sphere of production and civilization and notions of a center versus a periphery and so on. So you see the play of metaphors in the dominant discourse. And last night I had the feeling that this discourse on the panel was really prevailing, and I felt very much as if I'd come from another planet. So I've been asked to address the climate question, and last night Patrick Bond gave us a very good wrap-up of the current state of play and the current problems. What I'm going to do is look at some underlying principles which reflect this ecofeminist analysis as the climate politics plays out. In the dominant Euro-American tradition, religion, religious and secular, philosophic and economic, man, and I mean men actually, stands over and above nature, which is his property and resource. This is how it looks. Very schematic, but we can see it's often known as the Great Chain of Being, and it originates in the West with Aristotle. But it's been assimilated and used as a sort of common sense rationale for all our subsequent institutional structures and structures of exploitation. You can see in the top sphere, the sphere of humanity, the sphere of reason, the sphere of productive relations of production. It's largely the sphere that men enjoy, globally speaking. But below the line is the sphere of nature. And in this sphere, we would, the dominant mindset accords to peasants, to indigenous peoples, to mothers and housewives who do caring labour, children, animals, plants, and so on. So what's happening right now is that the lower sphere, the sphere of nature, so-called, is beginning to speak back. So this second paradigm is ecocentric. It prioritizes relations within nature. And it's held by people responsible for the labor of caring, social caring, and subsistence, and people who know that humans are actually themselves, we are ourselves, nature, in embodied form. There is no split, there is no division. Now this insight is coming from women, peasants, and indigenous activism, deepens the socialist analysis of capitalism in a way that helps to balance the emphasis on unjust relations of production with attention to relations of reproduction. Women caregivers, peasant farmers, indigenous gatherers are not just victims of exploitation, but skilled workers who think differently about the meaning of value and the meaning of security. In the context of climate politics, the androcentric paradigm is sometimes known as ecological modernization, but it's economic, not ecological in any way. By contrast, the ecocentric paradigm, views of those in the global south and women, many have argued that in fact all women inhabit the global south, even women in the global north. The ecocentric paradigm favours economic provisioning methods that are regenerative, that hold humanity-nature exchanges together, protecting the body of Mother Earth. Now, the small nation of Ecuador marked this radical conceptual shift with its 2008 constitution, a document that defies the old man over nature hierarchy by giving juridical rights to nature. To quote Article 71, nature, or Pachamama, where life is reproduced and exists, has the right to exist, persist, maintain and regenerate its vital cycles, structure and functions, and its processes in evolution. Every person, people, community or nationality will be able to demand the recognition of rights of nature before the public institutions. Likewise, the manifesto, composed for all life by the first Continental Summit of Indigenous Women in Peru, also speaks of an inclusive and seamless politics, a seamless politics of sex, ethnicity, gender and class and species justice. As they say, we join our wombs to our Mother Earth's womb to give birth to new times in this Latin American continent, where in many countries millions of people impoverished by the neoliberal system raise their voices to say enough. In April 2010, the World People's Conference on Climate Change and the Rights of Mother Earth was held in Cochabamba, Bolivia, and proposed an economic model based on the principle of living well. Slow down. Thank you. The principle of living well, to quote, "We are all valuable. We all have a space, duties and responsibilities. We all need everybody else. Based on complementing each other, the commonwealth, organised mutual support, and the community develops without destroying man and nature. What matters the most is life." Can you hear me, by the way? I'm not sure. It's okay. The Ni Vanuatu people in the South Pacific point out that their customary provisioning materials, methods, are a source of both sustainability and resilience. In the words of the International Peasant Organization, Via Campesina, small-scale farmers are cooling down the earth. Moreover, IBOM in the Philippines, an NGO, observes that only the labour of people working hands-on in the landscape can begin to repair the damage done by mining, deforestation, agro-industry, urbanisation and manufacture. This year, Vandana Shiva, an ecofeminist from India, and Canadian water activist Maud Barlow introduced a draft declaration of the rights of Mother Earth at the United Nations. They said, affirming that to guarantee human rights, it is necessary to recognise and defend the rights of Mother Earth and all beings in her, and recognising that there are existing cultures which and practices and laws that already do this. But achieving constitutional rights for nature is just a beginning. Global climate justice requires on-the-ground material changes, particularly in the high-tech global north, whose profit-oriented relations of production threaten relations of reproduction worldwide. The Cochabamba People's Conference was a turning point in climate justice politics, generating impressive recommendations on deforestation and agriculture, the structural causes of climate change, historical responsibility for debt owed by the industrial north to the rural south, and an international court of climate justice. But what has not proved helpful for protecting the body of Mother Earth was the discussion of climate mitigation, adaptation, financial provision, technology transfer, and capacity building, firmed up at Cancun and carried on to Durban. In fact, the conclusions of the Cochabamba Working Group on intercultural dialogue to share knowledge, skills, and technologies contradict the objective of living well when here. They give legitimation to the ecological modernisation agenda of the global north. Now, ecological modernisers promote productive business as usual as a way to reduce the carbon footprint, green jobs for the manufacture of globally competitive innovations and services, retrofits, renewables, and efficiency audits. At Cochabamba, a capitulation to ecological modernisation set in on the question of enhanced action on technology development and transfer. Here, an urgent need for development opportunities to catch up with affluent consumer nations was expressed. I quote, enhancement, development, demonstration, deployment, diffusion, and transfer of new and existing innovative technologies is urgent and essential to strengthen developing country partners' capacities. You can see already the domination coming from north to south and the masculine nature of it, which I'll return to. Here, development and technology transfer are assumed to be necessary for dealing with climate change. But the word strengthen in this text refers to economic capacity, not ecological capacity. Moreover, Under the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, an error of judgment is made when development and technology transfer are treated as ecologically, socio-economically, and culturally neutral processes. The causal link between consumer economies and climate destabilization, the entropic effects on nature of mining, manufacture, transport, electrification, and planned obsolescence are sidelined and mystified by ecological modernizers. And I think Hugo was raising this point in the discussion last month. Reliance on so-called technological efficiency, unquote, for environmental benefits simply displaces the material turnover and environmental impact of fuel inputs and carbon outputs from one geographic location to another. The technology of carbon capture and storage is quite literally an expensive, read profitable, exercise in shunting carbon around the ecosystem. Further displacements, social ones, occur in the financialization of climate politics, with permits to pollute and tradable offsets. Schemes like the CDM, Clean Development Mechanism, or RED, reducing emissions from deforestation and degradation, appropriate common livelihoods in the global south. At Cancun, a green climate fund was proposed. Reparative grants or loans to be made available to the global south to purchase the North's renewables. Some activists, unaware of the systemic cost to nature of technology transfer, anticipate benefits from such a fund. And its green gifts are unlikely to arrive without conditionalities on the sovereignty of land, sea, water, and air. And I'd just like to add that on this ecofeminist analysis, I omitted to say that what we see going down is power and the displacement of costs, the externalization of costs, sometimes known as debts, ecological debts, social debts such as surplus value appropriation, even embodied debts, which is an ecofeminist term for the debt to all women for their unrecognized reproductive labors. And what comes up, of course, is labor and resources. So there's a process of down with power and costs and up with labor and resources. The use of the term poor and least developed countries in mainstream climate politics is heavily colonial and manipulative, patronizing peoples of the South, particularly mothering women, as ignorant contributors to the climate crisis or pathetic climate victims. Yet as global footprint analysis reveal, per capita carbon emissions from the periphery of capitalism are way below those of wealthy urban high-tech consumer nations. The South's acceptance of financing from developed country parties amounting to a set percent of their GNP may compensate the debt of imperial plunder, but ultimately it can only sacrifice local eco-sufficiency in the logic of global markets. So too, the trade in technologies for adaptation will undermine the symbolic integrity of cultures and of gendered practices, still relatively free of the competitive, reductionist, commodifying, digitized mindset. The Cochabamba recommendations emerge in the shadow of a new order of global institutions for Earth system governance, one that threatens the autonomy of local communities everywhere. So here is our basic summary. The hegemony of ecological modernisation falsely poses as environmental management, but it disempowers publics, north and south, with the jargon of risk analysis and biosecurity. This is something the socialist left, many on the socialist left, are still yet to grasp. Living well, notwithstanding at Cochabamba, the intercultural dialogue there accepted this transnational program of neoliberal control, the androcentric paradigm over the ecocentric paradigm. It accepted it when it conceded to a technology executive board, technical panels for adaptation and mitigation, innovation centres, and a technology action plan. These agencies would lock in with, quote, regional experts, regional groups of experts in investment and development, and a compliance mechanism to promote remove trade barriers. This infrastructure was to be phased in at the Durban COP17, and we're yet to see how it will develop. But it aims to marshal academics, university academics as well, and critical thinkers, as brokers and technology accelerators. A proactive role for the universities in stimulating technology development and transfer through catalysing collaboration between the private sector, public institutions, and the research community. That's a quote. The World Bank's Global Environmental Facility will conduct needs assessment, unquote, and fund technology transfer projects in conjunction with advice from business, the EGTT, UNEP, UNDP, UNIDO, the World Bank, and UNSCC, among others. The Global Environment Facility will support technology centres and networks at global, regional, and national levels. And you see this system of Earth system governance emerging around us, fostering green capitalist pilots like CO2 capture and storage from sugar fermentation in Brazil, or green trucks in China, or renewable wave energy in Jamaica. The GEF and technocratic elites of the Consultative Group on International Agricultural Research, the International Energy Agency, and World Business Council for Sustainable Development will shape the details of the new umbrella of global governance. The complexity of this ethereal multilateral bureaucracy gives the lie to the material urgency of climate change and dispels any vision of grassroots self-determination. Post-Durban, emissions reductions remain voluntary. Resourcing for the mooted Green Climate Fund is dependent on getting carbon trading up and running. The principle of common but differentiated responsibilities proceeds into the distance. To conclude, human rights cannot be met without establishing the rights of Mother Earth. For this reason, the global climate justice movement must be encouraged to put ecocentrism before androcentrism. Ecocentrism first. To put relations of reproduction before production. To put living well before ecological modernisation. To put ecology before economics. And autonomy before global governance. In a democratic UN framework convention, the COP and the ad hoc working groups and subsidiary bodies would be advised as follows. That ecology and economics are different material orders, such that problems in nature cannot be fixed by money. That the Global North's ecological modernisation agenda, adaptation, technology transfer, efficiency audits, etc., is inappropriate to long-term ecological resilience because it is framed by the short-term interests of capital accumulation. that the response to climate change by counting, commodifying, and trading in units of gas is ecologically reductionist and should be replaced by a holistic scientific analysis of the humanity-nature metabolism. That culturally autonomous, eco-sufficient communities in the Global South have already pioneered this people's science and sophisticated technologies of low-carbon, regenerative economies. That the Cochabamba model of living well can guide the socio-ecological conversion of industrial nations towards sustainability. That educational training as capacity building for this transition in the North can be provided by peoples of the Global South and by women everywhere as experts in maintaining the conditions of life. The UNDP will be critical in facilitating this new intercultural dialogue. For those of you who are perhaps new to the idea of an ecological feminist analysis, I have a few flyers here for a book we did recently, written by women from all over the world, critiquing ecological economics and developing the concepts, the three-part concepts of the costs, which Professor Wen calls them. We call them forms of debt, ecological debt, embodied